Howdy, all of you delicious people. I'm here today to view Quantum Leap Season 1, Episodes 7 and 8. So, Course 7 is to be the color of truth, and this, of course, has Sam leaping into 1955, where he is to be Jesse Tyler, a chauffeur to Miss Trafford, and we seem to have Jesse who is to make a mistake, or a number of mistakes, because Sam does not realize that he has leaped into a person that is a different skin tone than he is. So Sam is to go on and realize that the more and more mistakes he's making, the more people are to get upset and are to go on and put people's lives at danger. Even to the point to where Sam has to go on to save a life in this episode, that he can't even go on and save himself. It seems that someone's going to have to pitch hit on this one, meaning when Sam cannot go on and save somebody, Al is going to have to. And so, in all honesty, episode 7 was honestly just boring to me. I didn't like episode 7. Plus, there is to be some unsavory language being thrown around. I didn't like how the N-word was to be consistently used in this episode, as well as also just like having it feel like a Driving Miss Daisy kind of episode. It just, to me, like, ugh. Not only that, but both 7 and 8 are both dealing with cars. And so I'm like, well, that's kind of lazy writing. But in episode 8, in all honesty, is probably my favorite episode of this season. Out of probably all the episodes, like, I probably also liked the boxer episode. Just because the story was unique, I liked it, but I just found episode 8 to possibly be, like, relatable in a few ways here and there. And so we have the Kamikaze Kid, who Sam leaps into 1961 as Cameron Wilson. Cameron, we come to find out, is trying to protect his sister because his sister is to possibly be tied to a man who she might marry to, and he, of course, is this drunk and abusive man, and so Sam is going on and relating Cheryl, Cameron's sister, to Sam's own sister, and how at some point he regretted his sister marrying off this guy that Sam just didn't like for good reason. So, and at some point, I'm just kind of hoping that Sam will go on and leap to himself some point soon, because that episode was freaking great. But so, episode 8, probably my favorite episode of the season. I'm not quite sure about episode 9 yet, how I'm even going to do that one, because I like to try and like keep one season to itself. More likely, I'm probably just going to have problems with that one. But anyways, let's... episode 8 is to also deal with drag racing, and also is to really just be like a lot of fun. We have Jason Priestley also in this episode, and so for you 90210 fans, or for you to just go on and remember a time of which where certain people were also on one show and the other, and yada yada yada. So, weirdly enough, we have Jason Priestley's character, whose name is Pencil, and nobody made fun of him for that. They never called him like number 2 or something, or anything like that. There could have been so many jokes that could have had from this name, But we had Priestley's character that was honestly just some bully. And yeah, so with that said, let's go on into just going into spoilers, because really, I could kind of feel like I've kind of graded both of these episodes. Episode 7 was just a bad episode, uh, and episode 8 was like the best episode of the season. So, whatever was to be the greatest grading that I gave any episode of this season, this by far and away was like my favorite episode of the season. With the exclusion of, I'm not sure what episode 9 will be. So, if episode 9 is somehow better than episode 8, great. I feel like episode 9 is going to be like a noir detective thing that I immediately was like, yeah, that looks cool. Because I kind of wanted that in like the original or the more current uh, Quantum Leap series also. So if we're getting a noir thing to wrap up episode 9, then I'd be like, cool. Like, that's what I kind of wanted for the other Quantum Leap thing. So, with that said, let's go on into this double 5 time territory, because I think it's about that time yet again to, of course, go on into spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time to spoil this episode. As I go through and try to find the cast list to, oh, okay, all right, take a little bit of time. So, hopefully, I'm going to remember everything, because I'm honestly a little bit under the weather for doing this review. Hence why I only had one video out go yesterday, because I'm like, I feel like crap, but I still feel like crap, but at least I am to go on and be able to put out reviews somehow today. Kind of tempted to put out one more review after this, but I don't know. Like, I'm pushing. I'm really pushing today. So with that said, I think it's about that time to just go into spoilers. Anyways, we really don't have Al with like much to do in these episodes. We don't have Al that like is to come in and kind of really have this like this story that he has. Like, there's always a time where Al is to be either mentioning about Tina, or I think Al at one point in one of these episodes is to mention that he has like this picture of this girl in this car, and he picked up both of them. He's like, yeah, like, look at me, yeah. And I think that's the next episode. That's the next one, not this one. So we have Sam leaping into Jesse Tyler, making his way into this diner to pick up Miss Melanie Trafford. Could be butchering that name for the whole episode, because I want to pronounce it as Trafford. So we have Sam coming into this diner, and he sits down. Everyone's like, what? Like, he's sitting down, and Sam's like, you know what, I'm hungry. You know. And then all of a sudden he looks at himself in the mirror and has realized that he is a black man in a all-whites diner. So we have people go on and grab Sam, and they're like, well, hey, what are you doing here? And so we have the woman behind the counter who is stating that it's like, well, hey, like, he's only here to pick up Trafford's meal. And so Jesse's like, well, yeah, that's of course why I'm here. And so Jesse then grabs the meal and then leaves the diner. And so this whole story ends up getting blown out of proportion from everyone, because this guy just sits down and maybe he's freaking exhausted. Maybe he's tired. I don't know. But like, when looking at it, like, you would have thought like this guy like was to cause a riot by what he was to do in this diner, but still, like, at a time period of this, it's a controversial thing. Heaven forbid. Oh no. So we have Jesse that leaves the diner and is to start to walk. And so Sam is having some mind dialogue. And when Traford is to kind of flag Sam down, Sam is like, well, maybe I'm just here to, like, walk an old lady across the street and then I'll leap. Wouldn't it just be that simple, right? So Sam goes on to, of course, find this woman. And Traford is like, oh, thank God, Jesse, you're here. Because, like, it's 100 degrees out and, like, uh, like I'm waiting for my meal. So Sam is like, oh, this lady must know me. So we come to find out that the car was unlocked and Traford could have just kind of went into the car. And so Traford is complaining to Jesse. It's like, well, I've said like 100 times already, like, don't, like, keep the car unlocked because someone could just steal it. So we have Traford that goes into her car and then Jesse is driving. So Sam has no clue of where they're going or how to get there. So Traford is to mention that she's going to the graveyard to go and see her husband, and so Sam is going to need to drive her there. But Traford is to have to give Jesse or Tyler, uh, Jesse or Sam directions. So Sam gets her there, and so Traford is to see her husband's grave with all of these weeds, and she's like, well, hey, I thought they would take care of this. And so Sam is like, oh no, I'll do it. And so we have Traford going on and talking about Sam's or Jesse's wife. And we go on to have Jesse, who is to take all these weeds and want to put them all in some trash can, which, of course, in this situation, there is no public trash can. So Al was to try to figure out, as Al appears, like, well, hey, like, when exactly did, like, they go on and put together a petition to have, like, public trash cans? Was that, like, 20 years from now? Something like that? We have, of course, Sam that's asking Al, it's like, okay, like, why am I here? So, come to find out, Traford is to get into a car accident, which is going to lead her to get hit by a train. So, Sam is going to go on to have to prevent that. And so Sam is like, okay, well, I guess that's the reason why I'm here. But also, Sam is kind of tempted. It's like, well, maybe I could also kick off segregation and everything like that so quickly, or more quickly than 4 months down the road, where it historically happens. And Al's like, no, like, you're just here to prevent this woman from dying, this old lady. So we go on to have Sam that is to take Traford home. And so, come to find out, Traford is to mention to Sam that she has a leaky faucet, but she'll let Sam deal with that in the next morning, like early the next morning. And so, Sam comes to find that Nell is here to pick Jesse up. And so, Nell is telling Jesse, like, how, like, wow, like, you really surprised a bunch of people, you really scared them and whatever. So Jesse's just like, yeah, come on, like, come on, don't say any of that. So Jesse gets driven by Nell uh home, and so come to find out, Jesse at some point is to have to make chitlins, and Sam has no clue how to cook this. It seems that Al can figure out how to cook it, and so uh, like Sam, it seems, is interested in eating chitlins, but when he is to go on and cook them, he's like, no. I've never had chitlins. Like, I've lived in southern states, but I don't think I've ever had chitlins. It sounds good. Like, the words of it sound good. I've heard people eat them, but I myself have never gone on, and I don't think ever had chitlins. Probably tastes good. It probably tastes great. But I don't know. I probably, because I've moved around so often, I've probably never had like real like southern food that like the names of them are so goofy and weird and whatever. Uh, but hey, I would always be willing to try stuff uh, like going into like the Bubba Gump shrimp thing and like having like gumbos and all kinds of stuff and whatever. But anyways, so because there's like a restaurant that is tied to like the Forrest Gump theme of things. So, anyways, Sam is to go on and uh, hear from his son Willis that Jesse should not be going on and sitting at that diner because that'll upset a lot of people. And Jesse's just like, well, hey man, I just kind of just sat down. Like I didn't think about it. And so all of a sudden we end up seeing a burnt cross in front of these guys' home. Nellis is spotted. Clearly we end up having two guys that they see bright as day that are to be the guys who had gone on and done this. And so uh, Jesse or Sam ends up going to the sheriff the very next day and stating he had witnessed these two guys doing this. And so the sheriff, of course, ends up doing nothing about it. So, and Jesse is to state, it's like, well, hey, uh, like I won't let this rest. And the sheriff is just like, well, that's completely up to you. So we have Jesse, after talking to the sheriff, is to go on to kind of wet down his face in this water fountain that ends up saying whites only. We again have the two goons, both Billy Joe Bob and Toad, who are to notice that Sam is to dip his face into this fountain. And they're like, oh, yeah, that's it. And the guy's like, wait a minute. Like, we'll get him later. We'll get him later on. We'll teach him a lesson later on. So, we have Jesse that goes on to make his way to Treford the next morning. And so what happens is that he's fixing the faucet, and it seems that this sink is so broken that it's like, well, we might just need to get a new one. So they're joking around and whatever. So we have at one point where Treford is making tea, and so Sam is just wanting to sit next to Treford at this table and just share tea. And Treford is like, no, I can't do that. Like, because we just can't share the same, share the same space together and eat. So Sam, of course, to go on and state, it's like, well, why not? What difference does it make? Like, why can't you just be the one person that it doesn't matter? And Trefort is like, well, so paraphrasing, of course, but it is what it is. So Sam has Nell kind of pick him up again, And Sam has an excuse that he's going to go on and drive Ford's car and uh, and so on and so forth. So Nell ends up driving away, and come to find out, Nell gets into an accident with Billy Joe Bob and Toad. She's driven off the road, and she, I think, kind of flips her car, something of that nature. So Nell ends up getting her head injured, and she's starting to bleed. So we all of a sudden have both Sam and Traford that are driving off, and all of a sudden Sam is to notice this car and is to notice that Nell is injured. They kind of scramble to get her, and so they have Sam, who of course is a doctor, and he ties this bandana over Nell's head. Speaking of doctor, we had Sam also notice that Traford is starting to get headaches. And so Sam is kind of like, hey, like Traford, follow my finger. And so Traford is like, Jesse, what are you doing? And Sam is just like, well, like I know a thing or two about being a doctor, and like I read a couple of books, and Traford is just like, no, like you just take your voodoo and or whatever, and I'm like, oh, okay. So, but we have at one point where Traford is to realize it's like maybe I should go on and maybe I should seek a doctor, but and she realizes this later on. But so Sam is to have Nell in the back seat, and so Traford is trying to like kind of put pressure on the wound, and so Sam is realizing that there is a doctor that can only see Nell, but it's a way far away hospital. There is one close by, but they probably won't accept Nell. So what happens is Sam is a state like, well, like she's gonna die if she doesn't go to this hospital, so we're going to this hospital. So Sam goes on and takes Nell into the hospital, and they're like, well, we can't accept her. And Traford pushes them to do so, and so they do. So we have one of the nurses who calls the sheriff because of what had happened. And so Al now comes in and is like, well, hey, like, because Nurse Tattletaled, like, what the fuck? Like, so come to find out, Sam, because of this whole hospital thing, he ends up getting arrested. And so Sam is to realize he's going to miss the window for Traford to be hit by this train because Sam will be in prison during that time. So Sam is to go on and be in jail, and so Al is like, oh my god, like what are we gonna do here, Sam? Like how are you gonna get out of this? Because in like 30 minutes or in like 20 some odd minutes, Traford is gonna get killed. So Sam gets arrested. There's no way for him to back out of this. So we have Traford that is driving to hope that she can maybe bail out Jesse or something, like talk to the sheriff and convince him to not arrest Jesse here. So Traford is driving regardless of what this nurse says, and because Sam had promised that the sheriff would tell these people to hold Traford for the next 30 minutes, and we have Traford driving out. So Al is to go on, and even though he's a hologram, he's like desperately trying to like, hey, stop, don't go. So Al is now stating for Gushy to like trying or Gushy or Ziggy to kind of have him be right where Traford is as he's kind of chasing this car and he's walking off. So the next thing we see is Traford, who is driving, and Al is sitting next to her. So Al is consistently screaming at Traford, like, no, like, turn back, stop, go to the graveyard, go anywhere else but where you're going. So Al keeps going further and further into upping up his volume, and he's desperately trying to figure out some way to get Traford to stop. To the point to where Traford is even mentioning it's like, well, yeah, maybe I should go see this doctor. And so Traford is maybe having some kind of imbalance to where all of a sudden she can go on and hear Al that is yelling to her and cussing to, like, drive elsewhere, or to get her car to the cemetery instead of going on uh, into driving past this train tracks. So Traford stops, and Al's like, "Oh my god! Like, I luckily saved this woman's life. She listened to me somehow." So Sam is now in prison. Al goes in there and is like, "Hey man, like, I saved her life. Like, if I can go on and I can influence an old lady." Al is thinking, like, what if I can go on and influence, like, women, like young women? And Sam is like, you dirty man, you. So, so Sam ends up getting free, as the sheriff is to go on and say it's like, well, yeah, uh, hey, I heard about what happened to Nell, and like she's doing fine, and so and the sheriff is to mention that those guys are really sorry, and so Sam ends up getting off, and so Sam ends up turning to the sheriff. It's like, well, hey, you know what? One day, like, you're gonna have to start seeing things very differently. So Sam ends up going on to talk to Traford, and Traford eventually mentions that uh, that Nell, even though she was in critical condition, had gotten transferred to another hospital. That, of course, was to be like a certain kind of hospital, and like Sam was to be like, really, like, that would have been risky. Like, she could have died, and it's like, well, no, like, that's the way things are now. So we have Sam that is just kind of given up on just trying to do anything here, trying to change the world within just a leap of time. So we have Traford that is telling Sam, as Sam is to state to Traford, it's like, well, hey, you can't just go back in the darkness after you've seen the light. And Traford is just looking at Sam. It's like, hey, get me my sandwich. Like, give me my sandwich at the diner. So Sam goes on and gets Traford her sandwich. And we have everybody there. We have the sheriff there, so on and so forth. So we have Sam going on and getting this sandwich, and the woman behind the counter is like, "Hey, you here to again get Traford her sandwich?" Like, yep. So what ends up happening this time around is when Sam gets the meal, Traford is just like, you know what? I'm wanting to just come in here and eat this sandwich. And then Trefor kind of sits down, ends up telling Jesse, it's like, Jesse, would you like to sit next to me? And so Jesse sit next to her, and the guy, the Toad or the Billy Bob guy, is getting up. The sheriff is like, no, 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 no. Like, just sit back down. Like, there's nothing you can do. Just let this happen. So we had this nice moment here, and then Sam is to go on and leap. And he, of course, leaps right into Cameron Wilson, who he, of course, is to be drag racing at that time. And so we go on to have Sam, who kind of stops the car mid race, and we have Sam who's just like, oh my god, like, what have I got myself into this time around? So now let's talk about episode 8. So we have Sam that is to leap into this drag racing man of sorts. So I'm also kind of interested in how they go on to do like every episode. Like how like do they go on and do they always have like some cutscene? Do they always try to like do a little bit extra that ties into the next episode, and then like they do a whole scene and then they cut that like to show that on the next episode? Like I'm just kind of curious how they go on to do every episode, or maybe they just like do one right after the other, because it's kind of like them working consistently. So, and it feels like they basically do 2 episodes almost in one. So we have Cameron Wilson, who is to lose this drag race against a uh, guy who I believe is to have the name Impala. Maybe I'm wrong about that. So we, I'm not quite sure, but anyways, so we have Sam, who is Cameron Wilson, and so when Sam is to look into the rear, or is to look into the side mirror of this car, we have Sam notice that he's a teenager, and this teenager is to go on and have a lot of acne. And so Sam ends up making the assumption that maybe Sam is just here to clear up this kid's face. And I'm like, really? Really, Sam? So Sam goes on to find out that he is a guy who is consistently getting bullied. But not only that, he is to go on and find out that there is to be a girl that is also getting bullied, and it seems that both Sam and Jill are going to find common ground, uh, with also Jill knowing quite a bit about cars. And so it seems that both Cameron and Sam are going to possibly be an item in this episode somewhere down the road. So, but anyways, we have Sam who is getting picked on uh, by these guys, and they end up calling him or calling his car, Sam's car, the Mom Mobile. And so we have Jill that is having the guys play keep away, and we have them just kind of tossing this purse back and forth. And so Sam is to find where like the purse is getting thrown at, and so Sam ends up getting Jill back her purse. And so we have Cheryl, who gets out of her car and talks to Jill, who is to be just upset because she was bullied. And so Jill ends up talking to Cheryl a little bit about, like, well, hey, like I would never end up with one of those guys, but if anything, like maybe Cameron is really nice and is really strong and whatever. So Cheryl's like, "Ooh, you have a thing for my brother, Cameron?" And so Jill's like, maybe. And so Cheryl's like, "Ooh, all right. So this is some gossip." So Cheryl's like, "Okay, I'll let my brother know." And she's like, "No, don't tell him." So we have Cameron, after he tries to help out Jill, he ends up getting bullied, and they end up basically just stripping his clothes off and are tossing him into a dumpster, and that's, of course, when Al arrives. So when Sam is trying to get out of the dumpster, Sam asks Al for help, and Al's like, well, like, sorry, but I'm a hologram. So Jill all of a sudden is noticing Sam is in the dumpster, and so Jill starts grabbing all these clothes, not knowing the connection between all of them, but then is to notice that Cameron is in the dumpster. And so, because the guys try to give him a wedgie, Cameron, but come to find out he's not wearing any underwear, so they just strip him and just toss him in the dumpster. So, we have Jill that is to go on and realize that the only reason why Cameron was being bullied was because of her. And so Jill starts to walk off, and Cameron's like, excuse me? Like, could you give me my clothes back? And so Jill's like, oh, yeah, yeah, I should do that. So Cameron gets all his clothes back, and so we find that Sam is to get his meal that I guess he ordered. And Sam is to mention about the contents of this stuff, where it's like anybody, I guess, during this time period would have like a malt, which is to be like a kind of milkshake. So we have Al that looks at Sam's burger and he's like, "Oh my god, that looks so great." And Sam is like, "Oh, do you want some? Oh, I'm sorry, you're a hologram. Sucks to be you." So Al is to figure out for Sam that the reason why he's here is to help out Cheryl. Because it seems that both Cheryl and Bob are going on to uh, Tonga as God, what was it called? Uh, uh, like nurses' aides or whatever it was called, for them to kind of go across the country to help people. Um, I don't remember the exact term. But so, oh, I think they were joining the Red Cross or something. Uh, so we have Sam that's like, okay, like, if I'm to go on and like save this guy's sister from being involved with Bob, uh, because he's an obvious drinker. We see that right early in this film, early in this episode. Sam is to relate because he is to remember his sister and the like his sister getting kind of abused and whatever. So Sam is to hope that maybe like if he helps out Cheryl, like he uh, can go on and like save the one person that he couldn't have saved before, which was his own sister. So, but also in a future leap that'll go on and correct that anyways. Both of those counts. So Sam ends up going on to make his way home, where he is to have a dad that is to punch him in the arm. And I'm like, wow, that seems familiar. So Samus mentions like, oh man, like yeah, my arm is like already like hurting. So the dad goes on and punches him in the other arm, and so then bizarrely his dad is also talking about like, well, hey, let's put on the boxing gloves and, blah, 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 and like abuse much. So Sam goes on and is to listen to Cameron, and so Cameron is stating it's like, well, yeah, like you better watch out for your mom because your mom's on the warpath. And so Sam's like, oh, great. Like, more crap that I have to deal with. So I think this is when Cameron is to also see, like, Leave It to Beaver. And, like, Sam is to, like, oh my god, like, Sam probably loved this show when he was younger. So, but this is probably to be, like, a brand new episode of Leave It to Beaver. So that's kind of funny. It's kind of like Back to the Future all over again, where like uh, where Sam is like, yeah, or Marty's like, yeah, I remember this show. Like it's like I remember the show in reruns, and the people would just be like, wait a minute, what are you talking about reruns? Like this episode is brand new, and so Marty's like, oh yeah, so. So Sam goes on to kind of make his way into his room, hoping that no one's going to notice. But his mother does. So we have Sam that gets pulled in to the kitchen to have Janie, Janie Wilson, talk to Sam. Come to find out, these people, I guess, are to be like so well off that they have a nanny or a nanny, a maid. So evidently, the maid had gone on to notice that Cameron, or Sam in this case, was to have this playboy, and so we had Janie that asks Cameron, "It's like, what is this?" And Sam is like, "Well, it's obviously an old playboy," and she's like, no, I don't think this is so old." So we have Janie that is trying to tell Cameron, it's like, well, hey, like, don't like read this filth, blah 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 blah. We're really looking at it like I don't know how many times we would have a number of kids going through puberty, and so at some point or another we'd have certain parents at some point that would try to go on, and we're like, okay, like this kid is coming up in age, so like he might as well have this or that or whatever, because he's getting to that age where he's going to discover things. So, anyways, so or he could just really discover things from movies. That's probably the easiest way to just find a film at some point that is a rated R movie. You could probably figure out a number of things. So Sam goes on to uh, to I think this is where he probably talks to his sister. Like his sister pulls him into this room, and that's where they talk about Jill. But not only Jill, we have them go on and talk about the one time where Cheryl had scratched Cameron in the face, and their mother had cut Cheryl's fingers. Like, she cut her nails, I mean. So, Sam, of course, was to, like, appreciate that her nails got cut, but anyways. So, we have Cheryl that tells Sam that Sam has a secret admirer, and Sam is like, well, who could that be? And Cheryl immediately just says, like, well, it's Jill. And Cameron's like, I don't know, because really, when thinking about it, Sam is a much older man than Jill. Uh, and Sam doesn't really, like, think about that he's leaped into a teenager, but still. So, Cheryl is to state to Cameron, it's like, why are you like not interested in Jill? Because like before you were talked about how you wanted to just marry her. So what's changed? And Cameron's like, I don't know. So we go on, I think, to have Sam like a little bit talking to Cheryl about Bob, who Cheryl is possibly marrying to. Uh, but yeah, really doesn't go anywhere. So cue us up to have uh, us going into the rehearsal dinner or the rehearsal of the wedding. So we, of course, have Sam, who is, I guess, to be the best man of this wedding, and so they go on and have this preacher who is to prep uh, the bride and groom of what they're going to do, yada yada yada. So all of a sudden we have Bob's father that comes late to this wedding, and he like stops the whole thing. Basically, we have Chuck that is to basic basically make jokes that he was to be drinking, and every joke is to be something about alcohol of some kind. So we have Chuck's wife that is to state it's like, well, I guess he did some early celebration. So Chuck is to go on and grab the broom and the bride, the the who will be married, and so immediately he's just pushing them on to go to the whole dinner part. So we have the family, and there's a number of people that are all kind of sitting in certain tables, and we have Cameron who has realized he's forced to sit at the kids' table. We also had Cheryl that was asking if Cameron was going to bring Jill to the wedding, and Cameron's like, I don't know. But so we have this to not be a wedding, but people are even bizarrely making toasts and giving gifts before this whole thing goes down. So I thought that was really bizarre. So we have Bob. I believe, yeah, I think it's Bob who goes on uh, to make a toast about this wedding, and so we also are to have Bob who gives a gift to Cheryl, which is to be this colored TV, and so Sam ends up standing up and he's like, well, hey, I have a toast to make also. So Sam ends up going on to make this toast that that Cheryl is to be like this hero, and is to go on and like save lives, and like he's to go on and say this all encouraging thing, of course, about his sister, and then he turns around and is to then look at Bob and state like, well, yeah, like the place that you're going doesn't have electricity, so like I will be glad to go on and see a number of TV shows all in color. Because where else is that gift going to go? So Bob was like, yeah, that's right. Oh crap. So we go on to have Priestley's character, uh, Pencil, that goes on and is to fling some pudding into Sam's face. And so he goes off to the bathroom to wipe himself off. So when Sam is to turn around, we all of a sudden have Michael Jackson, I guess, uh, who is this little kid that isn't even shown really all that well in this episode. I think he's just called Little Boy. No, I don't really think he's shown all that well. Anyways, so we have Sam and we have Mikey or Michael, who are both dancing. And so at one point, Sam is to go on and do the moonwalk, and then the little kid goes on and does the moonwalk. So the kid does the moonwalk, and then the little brother is telling Mikey, "Hey man, like we got to go to go on and do this thing." So Sam is immediately turned to Al like, "Hey, like I guess we influenced somebody." So Sam is to hear someone else come in, and so he goes into the bathroom stall. Come to find out, this is both Chuck and Bob, and they're talking about how Chuck is to want Bob to be a manager at this used car lot. And Bob is like, well, like, Cheryl is really interested in this whole Red Cross thing, and I don't think I can talk her out of it. And Chuck is just like, no, like, if you just set the parameters and just tell her, like, what's going on, like, she'll be fine with it. And Bob's like, oh, I don't know. I don't think I can talk her out of like joining the Red Cross. So Chuck is like, well, like either or. So now Sam runs off to immediately tell Cheryl what's going on. So we then have Cheryl that confronts Bob about this, and we go on to have Bob, who is just stating like, well, hey, I was going to tell my dad no afterwards, or I was going to change my mind. And Sam was like, no, you're lying to her, like, just admit that. We also had a certain scene where Sam was to also see Cheryl uh, like come away from Bob driving her somewhere. And no. I think there was also one scene where Sam is to see that Cheryl was to be in the wedding dress that was to be Bob's mother's, and uh, and so Cheryl's mother is kind of upset that she's not going to wear like her wedding dress. So Cheryl is just kind of upset, and she's like, you know what? I just can't wait till this whole wedding thing is over. And so when Cheryl starts ripping out the back of the dress, we have Sam who's trying to help Cheryl get this dress off, and then realizes bruises. And so when Bob is to drive by and see Cheryl in the wedding dress, we have Sam who confronts Bob about like, well, hey, she has bruises on the back of her neck, like showcasing that uh, like the bruises had to have looked like somebody was kind of choking her and putting like the thumbs in the back of her neck pretty hard. And so Sam does the same thing to Bob. So, but anyways, now back to Sam confronting Bob about his lies. So Al is to mention while Sam is talking to just, hey, race him for pinks. And Sam is like, what is he talking about? But so Sam ends up confronting Bob in his estate, like, hey, I'll race you for pinks. And Bob's like, in your, like, momobile? Yeah, like, you know that I'm, like, the fastest car in town. And so Sam is like, well, okay then, like, I'll race you for pinks. So Sam then pulls Al aside and just like, why did we just race him? And Alice is stated, it's like, well, hey, if we beat him with like the Momobile, then Bob is gonna show his true colors, and we'll get rid of him that way. Because Cheryl will realize how a savage Bob is, and all things will come to a head. So Sam is like, well, how are we going to beat him? And Al comes up with the idea of like nitrous, like how like laughing gas is to also be put into cars to try and get a better speed. And no one else knows about it but Al and Sam, because they, of course, are to have lived in the future compared to everyone else. So They have to go on and find out the right uh, way that this is all going to work, and they use the assistance of Jill. We have at one point where the laughing gas leaks, and both Jill and Sam are fixing it, and they're both, ha ha ha, ha. Yeah, I know how this is going to work. Ha, ha, ha. So they go on, and we have Jill, who is to kind of hit this button and customize this car so the nitrous is possibly going to work. So, and Al is stating it's like, well, hey, we have to like definitely get the right amount of time to be able to use this, or like the car might explode. So Sam is having all that writing on this race. So it gets to be race day, and so Sam is now going up against Bob, and so Cheryl, it seems, is to be tempted to kind of be in the car with Bob. And Sam is like, no, like, I don't want my sister riding in the car with Bob. And so Cheryl gets out. So they race, and we have Bob that seemingly is to be ahead. And so when Sam is to be tempted to use the nitrous, Al says no, like you'll peak too quickly. So Sam is to wait till Al is to tell him when to use this. So Al ends up saying okay now. So Sam ends up pulling ahead, and winning the race. Bob ends up getting so aggravated that he wants to just run over Cameron because he doesn't care anymore. And so Cameron ends up getting out of the way to have Bob crash his car. So now that we've gone on and had these people race for pinks, and Bob is to annihilate his own car, we have Cheryl who's realizing like, oh my god, you almost were to kill my brother. And not only that, we have Bob who's just telling Cheryl like the real truth about everything. So Cheryl tosses a ring down on the ground and is to drive away with Jill and Sam. We have Jill that goes on and takes the pink slip and tosses on the ground because what use is this car anyways? So they all drive away. So we have Sam that is to realize is like, well, like I didn't leap yet. Like, what am I going to do now? Like why haven't I leaped? So the next thing that Sam goes on and does is to go with Cheryl to have her go on to join the Red Cross, and is to go to Tonga. So Cheryl leaves and comes to find out Al is to mention that she is to make a lifetime of her uh, going on and enjoying the Red Cross, and she ends up finding love there, and everything all works out. So Sam is like, well, but still, like, what am I still doing here? And Cheryl is to mention for Sam to go on to go to, like, the shoe shine place and wait there. So Sam walks to the shoe shine place, and so that's when Al is talking about this girl in his car that he picked up at the same time. And so Al is singing this song along with Sam, and so Sam is like, well, yeah, but why am I? And so Al is like, well, over there, look over there. So come to find out, we have Jill who is pulling off like the Breakfast Club transformation, because all of a sudden Jill is wearing makeup and is wearing this dress and is to be all dolled up. So we have Sam that goes over to Jill, and Jill is to go on and mention that she's never been with anybody before, that she's never kissed anybody before, and she's hoping that Cameron will be her first kiss, her first possible love. So we whoops. We go on to have Sam kind of looking at Al, and Al's like, "Yeah, go for it." So Sam goes on and is to kiss Jill, and Jill is to kiss Cameron a couple times. And then, of course, we have Sam who ends up leaping. And the next episode, we go on and have Sam who is in front of a dead body because this guy has been shot multiple times, and Sam is looking over this dead body and he's like, oh boy. So I'm also trying to figure out who the character is because I just kind of clicked away, not realizing that I need to go on and find who Sam is to leap into in the next episode, which of course is to have him leap into 1989 as the uh, character Nick Allen. So that is going to be the next episode. From what I remember about this episode, yeah, like it feels very noirish, I think, from what I remember, but it's been such a long time. This episode does immediately look familiar to me, but I think it's kind of one of those like cliche-ish, like Private Eye kind of episodes, from what I remember. But we'll see about that. So with that said, I'm going to try to get out of here so I can go on and put this out there into the earth. So goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody. Let me know if there's anything that I forgot about, if there's any scenes of which that were to be of real importance to you. But without further ado, I'm going to try to get out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye, everybody.